If a man acts like this, it means they think of you all day. But here's the twist most women miss. The men who think about you constantly don't always text you constantly. In fact, the clearest signs that you're living rent-free in his mind have nothing to do with how many times your phone lights up with his name. And that's exactly where confusion starts. You're checking your messages, counting the hours between his replies, wondering if you even crossed his mind today, while he's showing you the truth in ways you're not even noticing. Welcome to the gap between what we think proves a man's interest and what actually does. Here's the brutal reality. We've been trained to believe that attention equals affection, that if he's not texting, he's not thinking, that constant communication means constant care. But real connection, the kind that lives in someone's head and heart all day, it doesn't always show up as frequent messages or daily check-ins. Sometimes it's quieter, sometimes it's deeper, and sometimes, if you don't know what to look for, you'll completely miss it. This video isn't about making excuses for men who don't put in effort. It's about giving you clarity on the difference between a man who's casually interested and a man who literally can't get you out of his head. Today, we're breaking down the exact behaviors, the subtle patterns, the small but powerful actions that reveal when a man is genuinely consumed by thoughts of you. Not surface level attraction, not just physical desire, but the kind of mental and emotional presence that means you've taken up permanent residence in his mind. If you've ever wondered whether you're actually on his mind, or if you're overanalyzing every little interaction, if you've felt confused by mixed signals or curious about what truly goes on in a man's head when he's falling for someone, this is the video that's going to shift everything. Let's get honest, let's get real, and let's decode what it actually looks like when a man thinks about you all day. Because the signs are there, you just need to know where to look. Let's begin. You know that feeling when you're not sure if someone's really into you or just being friendly? When you can't tell if you matter to him or if you're just another person in his contacts? Here's what most people won't admit. A man's interest isn't measured by his words. It's measured by where his attention goes when he's not even trying. And attention, real attention, it leaves clues everywhere. Here's the truth. When a man thinks about you all day, his behavior shifts in ways that aren't always obvious but are absolutely consistent. It's not about grand romantic gestures or constant declarations. It's about the small, almost unconscious things he does because you're occupying space in his mental and emotional world. Within the first few weeks of knowing someone who's genuinely captivated by you, you'll start noticing patterns, the way he remembers things, the way he shows up, the way his energy changes when you're around or even when you're just mentioned. But here's where things get real. A man can be attracted to you and not think about you all day. He can enjoy your company and still forget about you the moment you're gone. The difference between casual interest and genuine preoccupation, it's massive. And if you don't know how to spot that difference, you'll waste time wondering where you stand with someone who's already told you through his actions. You're just not paying attention to the right ones. Now, let's talk about what's happening in his mind. When a man meets a woman who genuinely impacts him, something shifts internally. It's not just that he finds you attractive. It's that being around you, talking to you, even thinking about you creates a feeling he wants to return to. That feeling becomes a reference point. Throughout his day, his mind wanders back to you, not because he's forcing it, but because you've created an emotional imprint that keeps pulling his attention. Here's where it gets even more interesting. A man's brain doesn't process connection the same way in every situation. When someone is truly on his mind constantly, it affects his behavior in specific, measurable ways. He starts integrating you into his world without even realizing it. He makes decisions with you in mind. He filters experiences through the lens of whether you'd enjoy them, what you'd think, how you'd react. This isn't something he announces. It's something he just does because you've become part of his internal dialogue. But let's flip this, because understanding what it looks like when you're not on his mind is just as important. When a man is only casually interested, his attention is scattered. You might hear from him, but there's no depth to the engagement. You might spend time together, but it doesn't translate into him actively thinking about you when you're apart. The connection stays surface level because in his mind, it hasn't gone any deeper. Men don't invest mental energy into women who are just passing through their lives. They invest it in women who've made them feel something they can't replicate anywhere else. That emotional response, that's what creates the obsession. Not obsession in an unhealthy way, but the kind where someone naturally occupies your thoughts because being connected to them feels significant, and significance creates action. If you're tired of wondering whether you're just another option, or if you're actually someone he can't stop thinking about, stop focusing on what he says and start noticing what he does, because real mental and emotional investment doesn't take convincing. It takes connection. And the men who feel it don't need to be reminded to show it. They already are. You just need to recognize. Let's keep going. You're about to see the exact signs that prove you're living in his mind all day. Let's talk about the specific behaviors that show up when a man genuinely thinks about you all day. Because the difference between someone who's mildly interested and someone who's mentally consumed, it's not subtle once you know what to look for. And once you see these patterns, you won't be able to unsee them. The first major sign is this. He remembers the small things you said weeks ago. Not just the big stuff like your birthday or your job title, but the little things. That comment you made in passing about your favorite childhood snack. The story you told about something your sibling did. The random fact you mentioned that most people would forget 5 minutes later. When a man thinks about you constantly, those details stick because he's genuinely paying attention. He's not just hearing you. He's storing information about you because learning who you are matters to him. And here's what's wild. He brings those details up later in ways that surprise you. He'll reference something you barely remember saying and you'll think, wait, you remembered that? Yes. Because when someone is on your mind all day, everything they say becomes more significant. It's not that he's trying to impress you by remembering. It's that he can't help but remember because you're not just background noise in his life. You're a focus. Next, you'll notice he finds reasons to reach out that have nothing to do with making plans. He's not just texting you to set up a date or ask a logistical question. He's sending you things that reminded him of a song, a meme, an article, a random thought. These aren't calculated moves to keep you interested. They're genuine impulses because throughout his day, things trigger thoughts of you. He sees something funny and immediately thinks, she'd love this. He hears a song and your face pops into his mind. That's not strategy. That's proof you're living in his head. But here's the key. It's not about the frequency. It's about the intention behind the contact. A man who thinks about you all day doesn't need to text you every hour. But when he does reach out, it's clear he's been thinking about you. There's a warmth to it, a genuine quality that you can feel even through a screen. Another unmistakable sign is how he talks about the future with you in it. Not in vague, someday kind of language, but in specific, natural references. He'll say things like, when we go there, or next time we should try this, or I was thinking we could. He's not making grand promises about forever. He's casually including you in his mental picture of what's coming next. And that happens because in his mind, you're already part of his future plans. He's been thinking about experiences he wants to share with you before you even asked. Here's another big one. He shows up even when it's not convenient. When a man thinks about you constantly, the desire to see you or connect with you outweighs minor inconveniences. He'll adjust his schedule. He'll drive out of his way. He'll make time even when his day is packed. Not because you demanded it, but because being around you is something he's been looking forward to. You've been on his mind, and now he has a chance to actually be. That opportunity feels valuable to him. And let's talk about how he interacts when you're together. When a man is mentally consumed by you, his presence is different. He's not distracted. He's not constantly on his phone. His attention is on you because this is the moment he's been thinking about. You'll notice he asks questions, real questions. He wants to understand you. He's curious about your opinions, your experiences, your perspective. This isn't small talk. This is someone who's been wondering about you and now has the chance to actually know you deeper. Another powerful indicator is how he protects your connection. If someone disrespects you or if there's drama, he doesn't sit back. He addresses it. Not in an aggressive way, but in a way that makes it clear you matter to him. When you're constantly on someone's mind, protecting what you have together becomes instinctive. He doesn't want anything to threaten the connection he values. Here's something even. He shares parts of himself he doesn't share with everyone. His fears, his dreams, his vulnerable moments. When a man thinks about you all day, it's not just that he's interested in you. It's that he wants you to really know him. He's been thinking about what it would feel like to be truly seen by you, and when the moment comes, he opens up. That's not casual behavior. That's someone who's invested mentally and emotionally, and most importantly, he's consistent without you asking. You don't have to remind him to check in. You don't have to initiate every conversation. You don't have to wonder if you'll hear from him. Because when someone is genuinely thinking about you throughout their day, maintaining connection isn't a chore. It's something they naturally do because not connecting feels like something's missing. If he's showing these signs, you're not just someone he likes. You're someone who's taken up residence in his mind. That's how you know. Not from what he promises, but from what he proves. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the psychology behind why certain women stay on a man's mind all day while others don't. Let's keep going. So now you might be wondering, why do some women occupy a man's mind constantly while others barely register after the interaction ends? Here's the thing most people miss. It's not about being the most beautiful woman he's ever met. It's not about being perfect or playing hard to get or using some manipulation tactic. When a woman genuinely stays on a man's mind all day, it's because of how she makes him feel about himself and about life when he's around her. Let me break this down. Men are drawn to women who create emotional experiences, not just physical attraction. Yes, looks might catch his attention initially, but what keeps you in his thoughts all day is the feeling he gets when he's with you. Does he feel seen? Does he feel challenged in a good way? Does he feel more alive, more interesting, more himself? When a woman creates that kind of internal shift, she becomes someone he can't stop thinking about. Here's what's powerful about this. It means you don't have to be anything other than authentically yourself to occupy someone's mind. The women who stay on a man's mind are the ones who show up as whole people. They have their own lives, their own interests, their own energy that doesn't revolve around getting his approval. That independence, that self-assuredness, it's magnetic because it makes a man feel like he's connecting with someone real, not someone performing to earn his attention. Another key factor is unpredictability in the right way. Not game-playing unpredictability, but the kind where he genuinely doesn't know everything about you yet and that mystery keeps him curious. When a woman reveals herself gradually, when she maintains some level of depth that takes time to discover, it creates ongoing intrigue. He finds himself thinking about her because there's more to learn, more to understand, more to explore. But here's where it gets even more real. A man thinks about a woman all day when she doesn't need, but clearly values him. That balance is everything. When you're not desperate for his attention, but you genuinely appreciate his presence when he gives it, it creates a dynamic that feels rewarding. He's not taking you for granted because you're not overly available. But he's also not confused about whether you're interested because you show warmth and openness when you're together. Now let's talk about what doesn't keep you on his mind. Being overly accommodating, always saying yes, dropping everything for him, constantly initiating. That doesn't create the kind of mental space where someone thinks about you all day. It creates comfort. And comfort, while nice, doesn't generate the kind of emotional engagement that leads to constant thoughts. When someone knows they can have your attention anytime, anywhere, with zero effort, there's nothing to wonder about. There's nothing to anticipate. There's no space for you to live in their mind because you're always just there. Here's what's important to understand. Men don't think about women who make things too easy or women who make things too hard. They think about women who make things real. Women who are present but not clingy. Women who are interested but not desperate. Women who are kind but not pushovers. That balance, that's what creates the conditions for you to stay on his mind. And here's something deeper. When a woman has standards, when she knows her worth and isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't align with it, that creates respect. And respect mixed with attraction is what makes a man unable to stop thinking about someone. He's not just physically drawn to you. He's mentally and emotionally engaged because he recognizes that being with you is a privilege, not a guarantee. So ask yourself this: are you showing up in a way that creates genuine connection? Or are you trying to earn someone's thoughts through constant availability and people pleasing? Because the truth is, you can't convince someone to think about you, but you can create the conditions for it by being someone who values herself enough that her presence feels like something worth holding on. And when a man senses that, when he feels that, you won't leave his mind. Because the thought of losing access to someone like that, it creates urgency, it creates attention, it creates action. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the signs that you're not on his mind, even when he's acting interested. Because knowing the difference will save you months or even years of confusion. Let's talk about it. Let's be honest about something uncomfortable. Sometimes men act interested without actually thinking about you when you're not around. And if you don't know how to spot that difference, you'll end up investing deeply in someone who's only casually engaged. So let's break down the signs that show you're not really on his mind, even if he seems into you in the moment. The first clear indicator is inconsistency in communication. One day he's engaged and responsive. The next, you don't hear from him for days. And when he does resurface, there's no acknowledgement of the gap. He just picks up where he left off like nothing happened. When someone thinks about you all day, those long silences don't happen. Because if you're on his mind, he naturally wants to connect. The fact that he can go days without reaching out tells you everything. You're not occupying mental space in his daily life. Next sign, he only reaches out late at night or when it's convenient for him. If the only time you hear from him is after 10 p.m. or when he's bored or when his other plans fell through, that's not someone who's been thinking about you all day. That's someone who thinks about you when there's nothing else going on. You're filling a gap, not creating a presence in his life. Real interest doesn't operate on a convenience schedule. Another major red flag is that he never goes deeper. Your conversation stays surface level. He's not asking about your life in meaningful ways. He's not sharing vulnerable parts of himself. He's not trying to understand who you really are beyond the basics. When a man thinks about someone constantly, he wants to know them. He's curious. He asks questions. He remembers the answers. If that's missing, it's because you're not someone he's mentally invested in learning about. Here's a big one. He doesn't make concrete plans. Everything is vague. We should hang out sometime. Let's do something soon. But there's no follow through. No specific day, no specific activity, no actual commitment. When someone is genuinely thinking about you, they want to see you. And wanting to see you translates into actual plans, not vague suggestions that never materialize. You'll also notice he doesn't include you in other parts of his life. You haven't met his friends. His family doesn't know you exist. He keeps you separated from his real world. When someone thinks about you all day, they want to integrate you into their life. They want the people who matter to them to meet you. The fact that you're kept in a bubble tells you he's not thinking about you as someone significant. You're compartmentalized. Another telling sign is how he responds to your needs or concerns. If you express something that's important to you and he dismisses it, minimizes it, or makes you feel like you're asking for too much, that's not someone who values your emotional worth. When you're constantly on someone's mind, they care about what matters to you. They want you to feel secure and happy. If your feelings are treated as inconvenient, you're not a priority in his thoughts. Here's something that really reveals the truth. Notice what happens when you pull back. If you stop initiating, stop reaching out, stop putting in effort, does he notice? Does he step up? Or does the connection just fade? When someone thinks about you all day, your absence is felt. If you can disappear from his life without him seeming to care or notice, it's because you were never really present in his mind to begin with. And let's talk about how he makes you feel overall. If you're constantly anxious, questioning where you stand, wondering if he's interested, feeling like you're doing all the work, that's your gut telling you something's off. When a man genuinely thinks about you constantly, you feel it. You feel secure. You feel valued. You feel like you matter. The confusion isn't because you're overthinking. It's because his actions aren't matching up with genuine interest. So if you're recognizing these patterns, here's what you need to hear. It's not your fault, and it's not that you're not enough. It's simply that this particular person isn't mentally and emotionally engaged in the way you deserve. And knowing that, really accepting that, is what allows you to stop wasting energy on someone who isn't giving you what you need. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't just act interested in person. You deserve someone who carries thoughts of you throughout their entire day. In the next section, we're going to shift the focus, because if you've realized you're not on someone's mind the way you thought, that's not the end. That's actually the beginning of reclaiming your power and positioning yourself to attract the kind of connection where you are genuinely thought about constantly. Let's talk about how. So let's say you're watching this and realizing that maybe you haven't been on his mind the way you hoped. Maybe the signs aren't there. Maybe you've been giving more than you're receiving. And now you're asking, what do I do with this information? Here's the good news. Understanding where you actually stand gives you power, real power, because now you can make choices from clarity instead of confusion. First, you need to accept reality as it is, not as you wish it were. This might hurt, but a man who isn't thinking about you all day isn't going to suddenly start just because you try harder, love harder, or give more. Mental and emotional investment doesn't work that way. You can't convince someone to think about you constantly. Either they do or they don't. And if they don't, it's not a reflection of your value. It's just a mismatch of interest and investment. So what's the first move? Pull back your energy. Not to play games, not to manipulate him into missing you, but to realign your investment with reality. If he's not thinking about you when you're not around, then you need to start thinking about him less too. Stop being the one who always initiates. Stop filling the silence with your effort. Create space for him to show up or show you who. And here's what often happens in that space. One of two things. Either he notices your absence and steps up, which gives you real information about his interest, or he doesn't notice at all, which also gives you real information. Both outcomes are valuable because both give you clarity. And clarity is what allows you to make empowered decisions instead of just hoping and waiting. Next, you need to redirect your focus back to yourself. When you're obsessing over whether someone is thinking about you, you're giving away your mental and emotional energy to someone who isn't reciprocating it. Take that energy back. Invest it in your own life. Your goals, your friendships, your passions, your growth. When you become genuinely absorbed in your own world, something powerful happens. You stop needing external validation to feel valuable. And that shift in energy is magnetic. Here's the truth. The women who stay on men's minds all day are the women who aren't sitting around waiting to be thought about. They're living full, interesting lives that naturally make people want to be part of them. So if you want to be someone who occupies mental space in someone else's life, you first need to occupy your own mental space with things that matter to you. Another important shift is raising your standards. Not in a superficial way, but in a genuine, non-negotiable way. Decide what you will and won't accept in terms of effort, consistency, and emotional investment. And then hold that line. When you have clear standards, you stop tolerating breadcrumbs. You stop making excuses for inconsistent behavior. You stop accepting being someone's backup option. And that boundary, that's what protects you from wasting time on people who aren't serious about you. Now here's something key. Learn to recognize real interest quickly. Don't wait months to figure out if someone is genuinely invested. The signs show up early. If a man is thinking about you constantly, you'll know within the first few weeks. His consistency will tell you. His effort will tell you. His actions will tell you. If those things aren't there early on, they're not suddenly going to appear later. Save yourself the time and emotional energy by paying attention to the beginning. And finally, make peace with walking away. The moment you're okay with letting go of anyone who doesn't meet you with equal investment, you become powerful because you're no longer holding on to hope, you're operating from standards. And men feel that shift. They feel when a woman knows her worth. They feel when she's not desperate for their attention. And the ones who are genuinely interested will rise to meet that. The ones who aren't will fall away. And both results serve you. The shift from wondering if you're on his mind to knowing you deserve to be on someone's mind, it starts with you valuing yourself enough to demand real investment. Not perfect investment, not flawless investment, but genuine, consistent, clear investment. And when you hold that standard, you stop accepting anything less. Coming up next, we're bringing this all together with the final truth you need to walk away with today. Let's finish strong. We've covered a lot today, from understanding the specific signs that show when you're genuinely on a man's mind all day, to recognizing when you're not and what to do about it. But before we wrap up, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. The power to change your entire experience in love starts with one decision. The decision to stop looking for proof of your value in someone else's thoughts and start being so grounded in your own worth that his thoughts become secondary to your peace. Here's what you need to hold on to. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't just think about you when you're in front of them. You deserve someone who carries you in their mind throughout their day. Someone who sees something and immediately thinks of you. Someone who makes plans with you included in them. Someone whose actions consistently show that you matter. Not someone who makes you question. Not someone who keeps you guessing. Someone who makes it clear. And here's the shift that changes everything. When you stop chasing clarity from people who aren't giving it and start recognizing real investment when it shows up, you become unavailable to anything less. You stop tolerating inconsistency. You stop making excuses for lack of effort. You stop convincing yourself that maybe he's just busy or stressed or figuring things out. You start seeing situations for what they are. And that honesty, that's what protects your heart and your time. So what do you do next? First, take an honest look at your current situation. Are you being shown through consistent actions that you're on someone's mind? Or are you holding on to hope based on potential and occasional effort? If the signs aren't clearly there, it's time to pull back and create space for the truth to reveal itself. Stop doing all the heavy lifting. Stop initiating all the connection. Let him show you through his actions whether you're actually a priority in his thoughts. Next, commit to living a life so full and meaningful that being thought about becomes less important than how you feel about yourself. When you're genuinely invested in your own growth, your own happiness, your own journey, you naturally attract people who respect that. And the men who are serious, the men who are ready, they don't just admire that. They want to be part of it. They think about you because being disconnected from you feels like missing out on something valuable. Remember, the right man won't make you wonder if you're on his mind. He'll make it obvious through his actions, through his consistency, through the way he shows up even when it's not easy or convenient. And when you experience that kind of genuine investment, you'll realize how much time you wasted in the past trying to decode mixed signals from people who were never that invested to be with. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. Drop a comment below and let me know your biggest takeaway, or if you have questions about anything we covered today. I'm here to support you through this journey of becoming the woman who not only recognizes real interest, but demands it as the baseline. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your heart today. You're on the path to attracting the kind of love where you're not just an afterthought, you're the thought that doesn't leave. And that's exactly what you deserve.